Good day, everyone. So previously, you had watched the different videos about the introduction of economic justice, its effect on the poverty, healthcare, and education, the different concepts of social justice, the process view and the end state, and of course, the different theories about the economic justice, such as the libertarianism, capitalism, socialism, and modern liberalism. But for this video, we will be talking about John Rawls' theory of justice and communitarianism. John Rawls' theory of justice mainly revolves around its supports to the justice part or justice value of the modern liberalism. So let's have a quick review about modern liberalism. According to the book, this is a combination of the positive characteristics or traits of the first mentioned theories. Like libertarianism, the modern liberalism includes the negative rights and external freedom. For capitalism, the theory includes the right to property, and for socialism, this includes the internal freedom and the positive rights. So now let's take a quick look in the value positioning of modern liberalism, which is divided into three values, which are the liberty, efficiency, and justice. So the justice part is mainly revolving about the John Rawls theory, so we will be focusing first on the liberty and efficiency. Since modern liberalism is gathering both the libertarianism and the socialism, the liberty aspects includes the external and internal restraint, meaning to say, it is not only from the outside barrier, but also the internal barrier of an individual that may affect his or her expression of freedom. The second one is efficiency. Since modern liberalism, as mentioned, is focusing on the flourishment of humanity rather than its intrinsic motivation in contrast with the capitalism. Okay, so now we are finished reviewing the different concepts about the modern liberalism. We will now be more paying attention to the justice value of the said theory, which is founded or fundamental by the theory of justice of John Rawls. He was born on February 21, 1921 and died last November 24, 2002. He was an American political and ethical philosopher, which means that his expertise are both in politics and ethics or morality. He gained his bachelor's degree in Princeton University, and right after that, he enlisted as an army and served as an infantry division in the Pacific Theater. As a fun fact, he served against the Philippines versus Japanese occupation. He is also a part of the U.S. Grand Army that defeated the Japanese. Moreover, he has also participated in the Hiroshima attack. So right after the World War II, year 1946, he came back in Princeton University and finished his PhD in moral philosophy in the year 1950. After that, he began his teaching profession in the different renowned universities such as Princeton University, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Cornell University, and of course the Harvard University. Take a deeper look in the theory of justice, and as mentioned, this is the moral justification of modern liberal theory or the modern liberal states, wherein justice is viewed as the primary virtue of the social institutions rather than efficiency, because such as how truth is the primary virtue of sciences. Because John Rawls argued that what will happen to efficiency if you have injustices across the society. These injustices remains to be with the need to be demolished even if it is efficient. So, this is also the baseline in rejecting the utilitarianism notion. According to Metzger, utilitarianism justifies the action as long as the majority enjoys the injustices experienced by the minority, for example, living wages, taxes, and etc. So, John Rawls negates this and promotes the justice as fairness. Let's take a closer look in this phrase. Justice is the giving the appropriate sanction, while fairness is relating to the inferences called upon the particular situation. Sometimes, or most of the time, justice and fairness goes hand in hand. So this is also in relation that the justices in the human nature is unavoidable, and these justices between the individual cannot be override even by the community. So how does John Rawls aims to create the principle of justice, of theory of justice, through the experiment of original position experiment? According to Munoz and Darde 2021, this is a thought experiment in which it aims to explain in the most simple yet very compelling way on how the people deliberate their perception about justice. So, in this part, the people here are considered as rational, free, and equal. The people here have two sides, the things that they do know and the things that they don't know. So first, let's take a look at the things that they don't know. These things that they don't know falls under the category of veil of ignorance. According to John Rawls, it is only through veil of ignorance that you can give justice and free choices. Veil of ignorance is the ignorant of our biases such as age, gender, race, talent, educational attainment, social, and economic status. So without these factors, the people are considered free from restraint or free from biases. But what does these people, rational, equal, and free people know? They know what are the basic assumption of human goodness, human society, flourishment of the society, and etc. So this rational, the experiment aims to question or to know if these rational, equal, and free people would agree to form a society in their mutual benefit. If all of them would agree in some points, given that they have different perspective on what is justice. So now let's examine the results of this experiment. So first we have that each person have an equal right to the most extensive total system of equal basic liberties compatible with all similar system of liberty for all. So this is very heavy in the vocabulary about talking about the liberties. So let's have a dissection of terms. So we have extensive. When we say extensive, according to Merriam-Webster, this is pertaining to having a wide or considerable extent, meaning to say that there is a large scope for the total system. But before we proceed to the total system, let's have a look first about what is basic liberties. Basic liberties, example of these are the freedom or the liberty to judge as one thinks best, speaking one's mind, associating with others, holding private property, casting a vote, and putting oneself forward. So these basic liberties are special and cannot be robbed in the person, rather than the general liberties that we think. According to Petit Philippe in 2008. Now, what about total system? When we say total system, it is a collaboration or compatibilities of different liberties. As mentioned, one person had a lot of liberties, freedoms in expressing or acting in the society. So this is according to O'Neill 1980 that these freedoms needs to have maximal liberties. And sometimes in getting the maximal liberties, some liberties we have to match the liberties from one person to another until we arrive at the maximum or the total system consists of maximal liberties. So, it is safe to say that this first chapter or this first principle talks about that liberty could be restrained for the sake of liberty. So, what does that mean? Liberty or our liberty or the general sense of freedom, the basic liberty, could be override, could be ranked in lexical order, given that the less extensive strengthen the total system of liberty. Given that yung mas lesser yung coverage, have less helps in strengthening yung total system, the coherency of the systems, and if that less than equal liberty is acceptable. So, this in the notion that the people are seeking liberty to pursue the good concept of good life, and that they do not want to be the receiver of freedom, of lesser freedom, regardless of their characteristics. For example, of liberty restraint for the sake of other liberty is the footbridges. the liberty to walk or to cross the street is hindered by the liberty for safety and social order. So you see, there are rankings between liberties, and these higher liberties, or the more important liberties, could take hold or could pause some liberties of an individual for the sake of total system, for the compatibility of all the liberties of the individual in that society. Next is that social and economic inequalities are to be arranged so that they are. So this part, or the second principle, accepts that society could have injustices given that the conditions are met. So the first condition is that it helps or it provides the greatest benefit for the least advantage. It should help those who are least and not make life harder for them. So the first concept here is the maximum strategy. So let's have a situation or scenario to explain what is maximum strategy. So given that you are to choose between three societies you want to live based only on the average yearly income of the three socioeconomic status in that society. So you have three societies, letter A, B, C, and you have three socioeconomic to choose, the high, low, and the middle. So you have to choose. Assume that you don't know the socioeconomic status. If you choose that society, you could be in high, low, or middle. So what will you choose? What community will you choose? So if you choose letter or community A, it is having a rational risk. If given the chance that you became one of the lowest income, you cannot perform well in that society. So next, on the other hand, if you choose letter C, it means that regardless of your status, you will still remain with equal to all of them. So the best choice here is the choosing group B, which is choosing the worst, best to worst. So this is the maximum strategy, that even though you are to experience the least advantage part, you could still act and fulfill your function in the society because that is your best worth in compared to the lowest income among letter society A and C. So that is maximum strategy. So let's go back to the greatest benefit of a least advantage. Now, let's move back to the principle or the clause under the principle 2, which is the greatest benefit of the least advantage. So this is a sample of applying the maximum strategy. You want, or the people want, to remain or to still have some hope to function in the community even though they are at advantage. So as long as it benefits, or the socioeconomic inequalities could be arranged, accepted and arranged, given that it benefits the least advantage. People practice the rational self-interest here. So let's have a brief recall in the chapter 4. Self-interest is putting yourself interest first before the others. So self-interest here does not equate to selfishness, okay? So your rational self-interest allows you to look at the bottom. What if I will be the most or the least advantage among the group? What will happen to me? So that is the prevailing thought of the people, of the rational, equal, and free people who choose in the experiment. Moreover, there is a corollary argument about the luck, inheritance, golden spoon, silver spoon. So according to John Rawls, this is considered as morally arbitrary. No one wants to be born poor. No one should merit those who are born rich. So, these accidents of natural and social circumstances both cannot be removed nor cannot be blindly accepted. But as stated in the clause A, regardless of the injustices, as long as it helps the least advantage. So what can those lucky people should do? They should help those or even out the luck of those who receive the negative ends of the spectrum. Next under this clause is that you have to attach the office of or positions open to all under the conditions of fair, equal opportunity. So Again, the prevailing thought here is, what if I am the least advantaged people here? So I want the government to take actions on my behalf. I still want to have equal opportunity even though I am poor or regardless of my characteristics. So that is the wrap up of theory of justice. Again, each person is to have equal right to most extensive total system of equal basic literacy is compatible with similar system of liberty for all. Even though we have some liberties that needs to be restrained in order for the total system of liberties, the maximal liberties for the whole society, this should still be under the consequences that it strengthens the total system of liberty, and that these lesser or restraining some of these liberties are acceptable for those who will experience this. And then the second principle is that social and economic inequalities are accepted and arranged given that the conditions are, first, the greatest benefit it has the greatest benefit for the least advantage, and it should have attached to offices or positions that open all under conditions for fair equal opportunity, given that it gives opportunity, or it gives the greatest benefit to the disadvantaged people, and that even at this advantage point or people still have the equal opportunity. So what are the criticisms of John Rawls' theory? So first, relativism and pluralism. Given that the modern liberalism communities have pluralism in terms of moral and religious view, it is very hard to determine the concepts between justice and fairness. Next is, this is very highly individualistic and disregards that the individual is part of the community, which will be discussed in the next theory. So, given the theory of justice is very individualistic in nature and that it disregards the human nature as a social being, the theory of communitarianism emerged. So, this is a theory that human beings are natural social beings and that we are part of institutions, family, and community. So, people are culturally and socially embedded, and these embedded aspects in us affects in our perceptions of justice and fairness. So social justice in communitarianism depends on the view of culture and tradition. And the core of social justice in communitarianism is reciprocity. So it is considered justice as long as it gives back to you. Golden rule that is repeatedly mentioned along different videos of different group is applicable here, okay? That do not do unto others what you don't want to do unto you. So that is the concept of reciprocity. Next, so it caters the dangers, or highly individualistic notions cater the dangers in the community. First is that it tended to be more individualistic, that creates lesser connection. The higher the autonomy of that person, the lesser they seek for dependency in other people. And the lesser the connection, the lesser they became strayed in the community. Next is that economic inequalities could wear down the society, hence needed to be resolved. Unlike in different theories, especially the theory of John Rawls of theory of justice, that socio-economic inequalities could be accepted given the certain conditions, the communitarianism believed that these inequalities should be resolved because it becomes a hindrance or a barrier inside the community. And that is heavily anchored on the Catholic teachings of social justice. Because according to the Catholics and the communitarianism, both economy is a way of flourishing in a common good or common home, which is the society. So, lastly, it is safe to say that according to communitarianism, economic equality should focus on the capabilities of the person in managing his or her resources rather than focusing on the abstract concept of income inequality. So, we should be focusing in terms of justice and economic equality in what we can do rather than having the ideas of equality for all, even though we are really starting with the inequality as we are born. Now let's begin our discussions about the researches that includes the theory of justice and communitarianism and morality, of course. So first is, according to Skitka, Bauman, and Mullen, morality and justice, or morality first, affects the decision making and the justice of an individual, or the sense of justice of an individual, because it includes in the self-interest and biases. As we recall, no, that even John Rawls itself provides that the morality of an individual, or the personal interest of an individual, encompasses the decision making and the justice itself. Also, one of the very debatable in the paper is that the relativity of the morality and justice versus universality of it. So as we recall again to the previous discussions, relativity means that the morality and justice is based on the society and culture, while universal means all of us have the common sense of morality and justice. And lastly, in the end of the paper, the conclusion part, it is stated that morality and justice are separate constructs. So here, there are some circumstances that morality is included but not justice, and justice could be included without morality. The next research is about from Sari to 2020, Rawls' theory of justice and its relevance in analyzing justice on ethnic phenomenon. So this uses the John Rawls theory of justice and the ethnic justness. So the author uses it despite the criticisms that theory of justice is very individualistic in nature. So, the author stated that the view of ethnic or races is described into two parts. So, we have the primordialist, which means that it is innate, embedded to us, just like how the communitarian views it. And the second one is the social biologist, which states that ethnic or races depends on the relationship, on the status of relationship, rather than the innate or embeddedness of it. So next is that the findings of the study showed that the theory of justice is still relevant, even the time gap, in solving the contemporary issue, as it adheres with the social contract from the altruism, egoism, and social contract in chapter 4, as we previously discussed. And also it proved the veil of ignorance, the experiment of original position, is very helpful, compelling, even in solving or in giving the overview of what is justice. And it, of course, is two principles. However, it is also stated by the researcher that it fails to explain the justice that happens inside the relationship or outside the relationship of the social contract and the gender related injustices. And so, for the last research is about communitarianism by Van Steveren in 2009. So, it is titled Communitarianism and the Market, the Paradox. So, according to the author, so communitarianism provides a dichotomy in terms of economic justice and morality, such as economy versus morality, because such as economic motivation of pleasure versus the moral motivation, which is duty and plurality of values. Economic goods, the um, goods that we have, the commodities that we have, food, services, and etc., versus the moral goods or the shared values, and the individual versus social. So we can see this situation, for instance, the economic motivation versus moral. So it's about the talking about the greediness, about greed, hoarding. Okay, so if you are motivated by economic motivation, greed or gathering many money, saving many money is pleasurable for you. But communitarianism marks that an individual embedded in a society should not hoard for himself only, but also to share it to other people. Example of economic good versus moral goods are, for instance, having or buying condoms. Condoms in other contexts are appropriate or accepted, but for instance, in a conservative country and you bought a condom, so that is economic goods. But in the moral goods, in your values, the values in the community, disapprove the use of condoms or any contraceptives. So that is also an issue. And then, of course, the individual versus social. So these dichotomies are rooted in the reductionist view of communitarianism, anchored on rational choice theory. It is a consequentialist based theory that are inclined on the preferences of an individual. So, for example, the consequences of that action resulted into something good. So, you mark as good and bad. So there are no gray areas. It reduces the views into two parts only. But and so that is one of the issue of communitarianism, because it is very dichotomous in nature, and we have a lot of choices that we have according to the author. And the author also mentioned the three main values of communitarianism, which is embeddedness, shared values, and practices that sometimes and or oftentimes could be find intriguing or contradicting with the individual values.